All right, everybody, I will go ahead and get started. I don't know why, Rhonda, but we're seeing your screen and not mine, but that's okay. So thanks for coming to our closing remarks. When we were putting the schedule together, it felt odd to not have an ending to this amazing couple of days. So we wanted to add a brief summary to wrap things up. We will be sending out a survey in a few days, asking you to please share your thoughts about this year's conference. Please take a minute to send us your thoughts. We would really like to hear what you thought. So I will never get tired of showing you guys this slide where we recognize and thank our sponsors. Their contribution to our mission and our message is so important. So thank you to Kirksey, Gensler, Walter P. Moore, Daly and Associates, Brown McGregor Architects, E&C Engineers, and Upchurch Kimbrough, and special thank you to our carbon offset sponsor, Texas Coastal Exchange. I would like to touch on Texas Coastal Exchange one more time because it is so important. This year's carbon footprint from Gulf Coast Green is considerably smaller than if we were to do this in person. It's estimated that we used about 5 tons of carbon dioxide emissions, and we did do calculations to figure this out, taking into consideration the electricity used by your computer, the internet, the HVAC that you have going on in your house, and the lighting. So these emissions will be stored in about 3 acres of coastal wetlands owned by Scenic Galveston. And the image that you see on the screen is of those wetlands. This year, Texas Coastal Exchange has received donations in excess of 5,000 tons of carbon dioxide removal and storage. And their long-term goal is to develop over 2 million tons of carbon storage capacity. And as most of you know, the coastal wetlands provide many other important ecological benefits. So please look into them if you're interested in learning more. And thank you to Jim Blackburn for helping us with this partnership, and to Collie Hodges for making that introduction. I'd like to give a big thank you to our keynote speakers, Bill Walsh, Brad Grant, and Lindsay Baker, and to all our speakers for making this conference what it was. And at this time, I would like to introduce my committee by name. You cannot see them stand up or applaud for them to show your appreciation. So I hope by telling you who they are, you can reach out on your own and thank them for all of their hard work. So to start, past chair, Catherine Ruiz of Dillon Kyle Architects. Our vice chair, David Painter of Thorn Tree Slate. Our sponsor chair, Tim Murray of Green Nexus. Our sponsor co-chair, Janice Brackett of Kirksey. Our speaker chair, Collie Hodges of Kirksey. Our student competition co-chair, Christina Hughes of Walter P. Moore. Our student competition co-chair, Ben Peace of Gensler. Our PR co-chair, Francis Oguntuga of Kirksey. Our PR co-chair, Steve Stelzer of City of Houston Green Building Resource Center. Our green event chair, Xavier Vargas of Gensler, not pictured. Our exhibitor chair, Matthew Deal of BMC. Our after party co-chair, Cynthia Guillory of Wolf Gordon. Our after party co-chair, Kim Lytle. Committee member, Sarah Del Cambre of Design Workshop. Committee member, Rucker Simon of Walter P. Moore. and our AIA liaison, Rhonda Lowe. And I would like to recognize two special people, a special mention of two people. First is the AIA web designer, Alex Thrift. Going virtual meant a lot of extra pressure on Alex with new websites and writing code and things that maybe he hadn't been asked to do before. And the second person is actually my brother, Jake Henry. Jake has nothing to do with this industry, and he lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, but he works for a company called Co-Strategics, and they do web and app design, among other things. Whova is not his app, but he was my lifeline for all things related to trying to make this conference virtual. And despite us having some bumps along the way yesterday and today, there are a million other things that he found and helped fix before we even turned on the webinar yesterday. So thank you to my brother for stepping in and being a volunteer and never asking for a single thing. It's impossible to find a photo of Rusty, so I can only introduce our fearless leader, AIA Houston Executive Rusty Bienvenue, to say a few words. And stay tuned after Rusty's finished to hear the winners of the 2 gift cards, as well as my closing thoughts. Rusty?
I think that's by design that you can't find a picture of me trying to do that. So Jody stole some of my thunder there by introducing the committee. But one thing I really want to say is that I was struck by Bill Walsh's quote of Dr. King yesterday when he talked about the creative minority almost always having the power to change the world or to make the world a better place. And I'm pleased to say that I work for the creative minority, and y'all have made the world a better place this week. When we went on quarantine in mid-March and started thinking about the rest of our year, what were we going to make virtual and what we were going to cancel, this came up as, well, surely if we can make anything virtual, it should be Gulf Coast Green. It'll be the greenest one we've ever had, which is true. And the theme is technology. It's a no-brainer, right? I didn't understand at that point the amount of work that goes into planning a virtual event. Nobody did. And I have to say that this group of people stepped up to do it in a way that I've never seen before. We participated, my staff and I, on other virtual seminars like this that other chapters put on to sort of see what they were doing. We also paid it forward by inviting some of my colleagues from around the country to see what you were doing this week. And I have to say, I think it was a fantastic conference. This group went way beyond what I thought we were suggesting in the beginning to do this. So I am really amazed at what y'all have been able to put together. So that and that's really all I wanted to say. I wanted to say I'm sorry that we're not in person, that we can't have a loud, thunderous, sustained round of applause for Jody for all that she's gone through to put this together. Having her and her team, that group of people that you saw do this, we couldn't have done it without them. And they really deserve that round of applause. So I'll be making a toast later when I have wine o'clock at home, and it's going to come earlier today than usual. But it is important that you send your thanks to them because they've really gone far and beyond what you would expect for a normal conference. Having Jody on board was almost like having another employee of the AIA. She spent that much time. It was a full-time job for her. So I really appreciate her doing that. Rhonda Lowe as well, who works on our staff, spent an enormous amount of time trying to figure this technology out to make it work. I know that there were a few glitches today and yesterday along the way, but that's fine. We have never hosted an in-person conference that didn't have a glitch or two. So I hope everyone enjoyed it, and thank you for participating at Gulf Coast Green this year. Hopefully we'll see you live next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Rusty. I will also be having wine o'clock later and earlier than normal. All right, I'm going to switch over to, speaking of technology, to our picker wheel, if anyone's familiar with these. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. So this has everybody's name in it that voted in the student competition. So I'm going to hit spin and we will get our random winner. And while we're doing that, if you can hear me over the spinning, maybe I'll wait. Here we go. All right, Duncan Elliott, congratulations. You have won a $100 gift card to a local restaurant, local to you. If you're not in Houston, we will find one wherever you are. But thank you for voting, and thanks everybody for voting in the student competition. I know it meant a lot to all of our students that participated. I want to point out, speaking of wine o'clock, I just want to let everyone know, because I forgot to mention it this morning, that the after party this evening will be a Zoom meeting and not a webinar. So you will be able to see each other and you'll be able to mute yourself and turn your camera on and off. So it'll be a different format. So just a few closing thoughts. When we were coming up with the theme for this year's conference, sustainability and technology, I found myself thinking about the black line between these two photos. On the left, those are my two ants playing in the sandbox that my grandpa made, probably with some old roofing or siding material. And if you look in the top left, there are rain barrels on top of a shed where they would collect rainwater and use good old reliable gravity to get it out of the barrels and off to wherever they needed it. They grew up on a chicken farm, which is where I lived until I was 4. And on the right is my son, at the same age, 4 years old, last week teaching himself to code in Minecraft, despite not being able to read yet. And we are that line down the middle, caught somewhere between sustainable principles that are smart and simple and technology that we can't fully comprehend yet. Our job is to bridge that line, because you can't advance sustainability economically without technology. When I am not a virtual event planner, I am an architect that builds schools. And for 20 years, I have built schools in Texas. We run into a lot of individuals that tell us, we've always done it this way. Or like this picture, we've always done it this way. And if you're hot, open a door, right? See in the back? So sometimes we get to build amazing high-tech lab buildings that look like this one. And this is where we had planned to host Gulf Coast Green before the pandemic. But these high-tech lab buildings, they're smart and they're technologically advanced, even so much so that, like Lindsay talked about this morning, our dean, who wanted this building to be a smart building from the start, still got frustrated because he couldn't turn his lights on and off every time. And sometimes we get to renovate bathrooms as architects to the same exact specifications in every single school in one school district, because that's the way they've always done it. So from my personal perspective, it can get really frustrating when you can't convince your client to try even one thing that might be better for the environment or for the users. But every year, this conference renews my passion for sustainability And it reminds me that the struggle is worth it. Because yesterday, when I watched the winning UHD team present their design idea, they mentioned that walking into this building is inspiring and that it's smart. And the fact that it's LEED Gold means something to Marianne Rabar, and it's helping to shape her future path in building automation sciences, which she is studying at UHD. So my hope is that you leave here today feeling motivated and energized. It is not an easy battle. And like Bill Walsh said yesterday in his keynote, it's not easy to be a sustainable architect in Houston and the Gulf Coast region. But as long as we continue to bridge the line between important and lasting sustainable principles and advanced technology, we will win and we will change the outcome. So thank you guys so much for coming and for participating in Gulf Coast Green, our first virtual year. And now go out there and change the world. Thank you guys so much.